Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm finally going to be doing the cheap art supply challenge, so let's just get straight into it. So to start off with, I headed to B&M Bargains, which is sort of like a pound stretcher or dollar spot type shop. It's actually amazing. They had so much to choose from, all for like no more than a couple of quid. So I ended up buying some watercolour paints, an A3 sketch pad and a set of felt tip pens. I'm also going to be using a set of paint brushes that I got from B&M a while back, and these are actually the brushes that I use most of the time. Most of my art supplies are pretty cheap anyway, but I'll get back to that. And then just this standard pencil that I actually picked up in IKEA yesterday. So the pencil was obviously free, and that brings my total spend to around £5. Now I'm going to start with a sketch. I usually use mechanical pencils to map out my drawings, but since I only ever really use pencil as like a first step and none of my finished pieces ever really include the pencil lines, I'm not too bothered with the quality of how this sort of preliminary sketch turns out. And it's actually working out surprisingly well. I have noticed that the paper is a lot thinner than I thought it was. I think I let the sticker on the front of the sketchbook trick me into thinking that it would be some amazing improved quality, but it is only 80 GSM and I'm more used to using paper that's about 180 GSM plus. So I'm a little bit worried to see how it takes to wet application. But I guess it's time to find out. I'm going to try and keep my watercolour as sort of dry as possible, like not add too much water, because I can already tell the paper's going to start wrinkling and buckling if it gets too wet. Yeah, this is definitely going to be a struggle, especially I think once I get to the skin and I'm adding colours on top of colours to try and shade it and give it some depth. I think the paper could end up getting a bit bobbly, it might even tear, but we'll see, time will tell. In terms of pigment, it looks alright. I did consider stretching the paper before starting, but this isn't really the type of paper that I think you can stretch effectively. I think if I wet this whole piece of paper in order to stretch it, it would just fall apart. Yeah, I have to say this paint is not bad. You get a decent colour payoff. It blends alright. I mean, for £1.99, you really can't complain. So yeah, in terms of the quality of the paint, I'm quite pleased with it. Really the only thing I'm concerned about for this painting is the paper, because like I said before, I'm quite used to using cheap supplies. A lot of the stuff I use most commonly is relatively cheap. Really the only exception I think are my Winsor & Newton gouache paints, which are a little bit pricier but still not too expensive. And then I do prefer to use, as I said, thicker watercolour or mixed media paper, which can cost a bit as well. Other than that though, I just use my brush pens, which cost about £2 to £5 each and last really long. And then anytime you see my other sets of paints in my videos, like my watercolours, I've actually built up most of that collection from car boot sales. Like my WH Smith set was a £5 for the whole thing. I'm just a thrifty person in general, so yeah, I think that's why it's taken me so long to do this video, because I kind of felt like it would be cheating to use the stuff I already have. It probably doesn't help that I'm so out of practice with watercolour. I didn't realise it's been a little while since I've used it, and it's taking some getting used to. So obviously so far it all looks like a bit of a mess. I think it would help as well if the paper wasn't so crinkled and you'd actually be able to see how it looks. So I'm going to let this dry for a bit, possibly blast it with a hairdryer to speed things up, and then we'll get to the next bit. Alright, so we're back. I do think it looks a little bit better now that it's dry. I think it's evened out some of those wrinkles. Now I'm going to go ahead and start some outlines with these felt tips. Maybe even deepen the colour in some areas. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if the paper can handle it. Obviously I would normally use a brush pen at this point, so I'm gonna try and give it a brush pen look by thickening the lines in some areas. But these pens are pretty nice. They're not as easy to control as brush pens, I don't think, but they do give a decent solid outline, and that's all I need really. And I like how I can also get some really thin, fine lines with it. And then I've got sort of more control with where I thicken it out. And I don't have much else to say about these pens, but while we have a second, I'll just say that I have finally got into the swing of getting a video out every Tuesday plus every other Friday, but I'm currently in Manchester visiting family, or I will be by the time you're watching this, so I didn't manage to pre-record 2 videos for this week, hence the lack of video this Tuesday just gone. but we should be business as usual from now on. And before I forget, if you haven't seen already on Instagram and Tumblr, prints of the painting from last week's video are now available in my shop. So I'll leave a link to where you can get those, probably on screen and also in the description below. But yeah, back to the painting. I've really been enjoying using these felt tip pens. They do have a sort of dry feel to them. I don't know if that's just how they are on top of this watercolour paint. I like the fine line effect that they give. One thing that I will say is that after a little while, like in areas like this, the paper does start to bunch up and sort of dissolve under the felt tip, but I think that's more to do with the paper than the pen. So I kind of think I'm done. This has been a lot of fun. Obviously I love a bargain and I'm a huge fan of cheap art supplies, so I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and I hope it encourages you to create something beautiful with whatever you've got. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!